Hey guys, good morning. Welcome to Tuesday's class. Beautiful sunny day out, so I hope you guys are taking a little time to step outdoors and enjoy some of that. All right. So I want to start with English with regard to writing. I just want you guys to do any last minute edits, get yourself ready to present this evening. Now, boys, you're going to be presenting in Rabbi's Zoom, and girls, you're going to be presenting in my Zoom session. That being said, I'll email details about this, but boys, you don't need to be a part of the Zoom session for my class tonight. And girls, I imagine, don't need to be a part of Rabbi's, but I'm sure he'll get in touch with you regarding that. All right. I'll send out a schedule to the girls of who's going to be presenting first. We're going to do a minute and a half each tops. I'm going to cut you off at that point. All right. So just make sure you practice going through it. All right. Short and sweet. That's the way to do it. A minute and a half, believe it or not, is a lot of time in public speaking. Okay. So I will send you guys some minor edits. Everybody's really looked great. I was really impressed. Still some of you missing. All right. So I want to make sure that I get those because, I mean, each day now that I get it late, if we don't present, it's going to hurt your grade. Okay. All right. So today we're going to be looking at promises to keep. Now, specifically, we're going to be talking about Jackie Robinson's role in the civil rights movement. Now, this should ring a bell. Civil rights is something that we talked about even before we started this book, but it's this idea of the rights that all people should have. All right. And like Jackie Robinson fighting for equality to break down the segregation in professional sports is one thing. That's just sports, though. All right. At the same time that this is happening, African American and black people in the United States are fighting for their civil rights in everyday life. This is where Martin Luther King comes in with the Montgomery bus boycotts. You know, anything from voting to property to jobs to Jim Crow laws about, incarceration, all right, and different incarceration rates, which means people being arrested. We still have, there's still reverberations of that to this present day, all right, but this is the start of what we call the civil rights movement, where we're finally starting to see a concerted effort and successes in the African American community just to get the equal rights that everybody else in the country has. So it's a shame that they have to fight for that, all right, but at the same time, it's pretty incredible what they were able to accomplish. Okay, so we're reading 50 to 57. I have a task card posted on the Google Classroom. Okay, so this is a Google Doc. So it's going to look like a Microsoft Word document or a Google Doc, but you should be able to go right in there, write your answers in. I'm going to model that for you and submit it to me, and then this time I should be able to see your responses, okay? So we'll try that out. If it's still an issue, then Mr. Wall just doesn't know what he's doing, all right? But we'll have a better idea, in our Zoom session, okay? So flipping it right around, starting on page 50, I'm going to read this to you guys, but you're going to reread it once on your own, so what I'm going to do, I'll read it out loud, all right? You're going to read the task card. That would be the next thing you do so that you go into your reading with a focus. And if you want to play my reading in the background, if that helps you go through it, that's fine, okay? So we're starting on page 50. A civil rights champion. After the 1956 baseball season, it was clear that things had changed. Branch Rickey had left the Dodgers, and at age 37, Dad had passed his peak playing days. On December 13th, 1956, the Brooklyn Dodgers announced that my father had been traded to their rival, the New York Giants. Dad played along with the news of the trade, saying he'd give the Giants all that he had to give. The truth was, my father was aware that his baseball playing days were almost over. In anticipation of his retirement, he was investigating other opportunities. As the Dodgers announced the trade, my father stepped up his negotiations with the coffee manufacturer and restaurant chain, Chock full of Nuts, for a career outside of baseball. And while you're doing this reading, I want you guys to be paying attention to the photos, the captions in them, all right? Because all of this stuff you'll see can work as evidence to help you answer the question that we'll have at the end of the reading. So news of the trade sent baseball fans into an uproar. Angry letters poured into the Dodgers' offices and into our home. The trade hit us hard, too. Dad had wanted to retire as a Brooklyn Dodger. He was angry that the team to which he had been loyal hadn't even bothered to consult him on their plans to trade him. Without letting on that he intended to retire rather than accept the trade, Dad's agent made a deal with Look magazine. They got the exclusive rights to print my father's retirement story. In the January 1957 issue of Look, Dad announced his retirement from baseball. The Giants tried to get my father to change his mind by offering him more money. Dad turned them down. He accepted a job with Chock full of Nuts in New York City. At home, we celebrated the news. Major League Baseball players spend 9 months of the year traveling, and we knew that if Dad retired, he'd be home with us more. So, as Dad prepared for life as a commuter, we imagined having him at home more nights in time for dinner. We liked the idea. Dad exchanged his Dodgers uniform for a corporate suit and tie in the winter of 1957. He became the vice president of personnel for Chock-full of Nuts. Like lots of other fathers in Stamford, Dad left home each morning at 8 and returned most nights by 6. Not being on the road meant he had time to give motivational speeches, write newspaper columns, raise money for civil rights organizations, join protest marches, speak to youth groups, play golf, and cut the lawn. Dad also agreed to chair the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People Freedom Fund Drive. As NAACP chairman, he traveled around the country raising money for the nation's oldest civil rights organization. The first year of his tour, he helped raise more than $1 million. Dad had joined a group of investors and community activists to bring the first black-run bank to Harlem in New York City. They felt that a minority-owned and operated bank was the only way to help rebuild Harlem's predominantly black community. On January 4, 1965, Freedom National Bank opened on 125th Street. All right, so here I want you guys to really pay attention to the photos because these are some pretty great ones. All right, so we have Jackie right up top here, modeling with a poster for the NAACP. All right, looks like here he is marching for a civil rights march, giving a lecture. All right, probably same thing, same lecture. All right, but we're seeing, right, that he's a lot more involved than just a baseball player, right? He's kind of reinvented himself into a civil rights champion. All right, so page 54. On January 23rd, 1962, my father learned that he'd been elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame on the first round. He was happy and excited. There was a flurry of activity that led up to the July induction ceremonies in Cooperstown, New York. I was 12 at the time and not quite sure what all the hoopla was about. I asked my father what it meant to be chosen for the Hall of Fame. He said it was like being named to the Supreme Court if you're a lawyer. I got that point. Dad's Hall of Fame induction was wonderful. Both of my grandmothers were there with us, along with Branch Rickey, and many others who helped my parents throughout my dad's baseball career. Dad was the first African American inducted into the Hall. When he was presented with his plaque, he spoke with such pride. I was so happy to be a part of his big day. The following year, we hosted the first of many jazz concerts at our home to raise money for the civil rights movement. The 1963 concert was a fundraiser for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s organization, the Southern Christian Leadership Committee. All right, so make sure you're paying attention to these captions, all right, reading what's up below the photos. During the 1960s, Dad wore many different hats and faced many new challenges. The biggest challenge was his health. Shortly after he retired from baseball, Dad found out he was diabetic. His health problems became more and more serious. Dad was only in his 40s when he had his first heart attack. By his late 40s, his diabetes had left him partially blind. Still, the last 7 years of my dad's life were filled with politics, business, family, friends, and golf. During that time, I married and attended Howard University College of Nursing. My brother David completed high school at Mount Hernon, Massachusetts, and went on to college at Stanford University. Mom taught nursing at Yale University. My older brother, Jackie, fought in Vietnam, received a Purple Heart, and then died tragically in a car accident when he was only 24. Despite our shock and pain over losing our beloved Jackie, we rallied as a family for what turned out to be our last year with Dad. That year was 1972. It was also the 25th anniversary of Dad's breaking the color barrier. In addition to special times together as a family, we celebrated Dad receiving a number of tributes. The final one took place on October 15, 1972. Dad threw out the first ceremonial pitch during the second game of the World Series in Cincinnati, Ohio. A record crowd was in attendance. An estimated 60 million people watched the ceremony on television. All Major League Baseball teams were now fielding black, white, or Hispanic players, but the diversity stopped there. There were no non-white executives, managers, or general managers in professional baseball. So Dad felt it important that he use his last public address to remind us all that equality was an ongoing struggle. I am extremely proud and pleased, Dad said in his World Series speech, but I'm going to be more pleased and more proud when I look at the third base coaching line one day and see a black face managing in baseball. In addition to his many achievements in sports, my father was awarded the highest honors from civil and human rights organizations, religious groups, and the United States government. From the NAACP's Spingarn Medal to the nation's highest civilian award, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, my father's accomplishments on and off the field have been widely recognized. Dad spent his entire life fighting for equality. He won some battles and lost others. He made some mistakes, but he also inspired millions. My father never lost hope or gave in to despair, even when his health failed him. He once said, "A life is not important except for the impact it has on other lives." Dad lived his philosophy. All right. So Jackie Robin's legacy. All right. We buried my father on October 29th, 1972. In his eulogy, the Reverend Jesse L. Jackson reminded us that no grave could hold this man down. More than 2,500 mourners watched as 6 former athletes, Boston Celtics star Bill Russell and Dodgers teammate Don Newcomb, Joe Black, Junior Gillum, Pee Wee Reese, and Ralph Branca carried my father's silver blue coffin draped in red roses out of New York City's Riverside Church. After the service, people were lining the streets to pay their final respects as Dad's casket passed through Harlem on its way to the Cypress Hills Cemetery in Brooklyn. It was one of the saddest days of my life. It took years for the pain and sense of loss to dull, but Dad would have expected us to stay in the game of life and to meet each challenge with strength and compassion. That's been my promise to him. In 2002, my son Jesse helped pay tribute to my dad as part of the Major League Baseball's Memorable Moments campaign. At the 73rd All-Star Game in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, my son reenacted my father's first moments as a Major League player. Jesse, wearing a replica of my dad's famous 42 Dodgers uniform, stepped across first plate, paused, hands resting on his bent knees, eyes serious. At 24, he was 5 years younger than his grandfather had been when he broke baseball's color barrier. As the announcer played out the dramatization, he introduced my son to 43,000 cheering fans. Mom and I sat proudly watching from the baseball commissioner's box as Jesse, who is 2 generations removed from the moment, accepted this profound yet brief connection to his grandfather. We'd raised my son with stories and pictures of Dad's achievement, but at the same time stressed the importance of defining life on your own terms. As we observed the confidence Jesse displayed that evening, we knew how far he'd come towards creating an identity separate and distinct from his grandfather. And that's the challenge. It's taken me many years to understand and celebrate the fullness of my legacy. In achieving understanding, however, I've been both inspired and given a sense of direction that's enhanced who I am. At the same time, I've had the freedom to create a life of my own. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now, what I'd like you to do is you're really going to focus on pages, 52 to 57? All right, I read you that last bit. All right, and we will finish the book together, but I just kind of wanted to round it out. You don't really need to find too much facts in those last 2 pages, okay? And we'll finish the book this week, essentially. I got some writing I want you guys to start on, but it'll be simple, okay? So I have up on our class, all right, our Google Classroom, I have this document posted, okay? So you're going to use the video that's on YouTube, all right, to then answer the assignment, okay? So I just want to make sure. I always do this. Sorry, guys. All right, so I'm just going to look in classwork because I know I can get in there, all right? I click on this. Here we go. That's the document, all right? See how it says Google Docs? It's not the same as that the Google form, which we had trouble with. All right, so now I should be able to come right in, all right? And I want you guys to focus on, this is your question that you're focusing on, all right? What's in bold? After leaving baseball, how did Jackie Robinson use his popularity to champion, all right, or to further the cause of civil rights? That's what you're after, okay? So you're going to independently read pages 52 to 57, all right? I know you're not going to really be able to mark the text if you only have the PDF, but just, like, scribble down some ideas, some things that you saw as you read that show what he did to promote civil rights after baseball, okay? And then, while you're reading, I want you to look through and define these words, all right? Now, one word definition, synonym, that's fine, okay? But you can type it right in, okay? And lastly, all right, think about and then discuss, do the facts and details you located help to answer the question? Here, there's enough space for you to write a response to this question and also answer the secondary question of, do the details that you found back up what you were saying? You, of course, want them to. All right, so basically by me doing the reading and then you reading it once, you'll have gone through the reading twice, but read this question first before you do your reading independently. All right, and then when you're done, you're just going to hit, share, okay, and that's it. It'll send it back to me and our class page, and I should be able to see your responses right then and there, okay? So keep an eye out just for a message that's explaining the schedule. I'll send that out in a little bit. All right, but again, girls, you're going to be presenting with me tonight, your biome project. Boys, in your Zoom session with Rabbi, all right, you're going to be presenting to him, and he'll get you a schedule, okay? I will send out something like a viewing guide, all right, and I'm sure Rabbi will do something similar, okay? So I look forward to seeing you guys at 5, and again, you're really just focusing on this short English reading, all right, and just do any last-minute edits you need to do, all right? See you guys soon.